Suddenly, Mei Qing was hugged tightly by Jacob, and her whole body stiffened in a moment. From the bottom of her heart, why didn't she hope that Jacob could hug herself tightly after 20 years? After all, this is the only person she has loved in her life. At this moment, the first lover from more than 20 years ago hugged her so tightly, his hands clasped tightly on her belly, and the feeling seemed to have brought her back to the 20-year-old youth years. The true feelings in Mei Qing's heart were surging, and she suddenly couldn't help it, and put her hand on the other's hand. But at the moment she put her hand on Jacob's hand, she suddenly realized that it was wrong for her to do so. So she broke away from Jacob's embrace, arranging her hair in a panic, and said unnaturally, "Jacob, we two can't do this, you are married after all, and I can't wrong Elaine." Jacob was immediately anxious, and blurted out, "At the beginning, she was sorry for you. When we were together, we were in such a good relationship. She knew that I was your boyfriend, and she took advantage of it when I was drunk. If she were not so shameless, the two of us would have already been together." Mei Qing sighed lightly and said, "Even though the past was her fault, I was the one who chose to let go. Since I have chosen to let go and give you to her, I will not be like her back then. I'm sorry for that, and I'm sorry for her again. This is a matter of principle. Otherwise, would I be like her?" Jacob was anxious and said, "That woman has almost ruined the relationship between the two of us for a lifetime. Do you still need to talk about her about principles at this time?" Mei Qing said seriously, "In fact, after that incident happened back then, I also knew in my heart that all of this was caused by Elaine behind my back. I knew she is a villain, but I can't become a villain because of being hurt by a villain." As she said, she looked at Jacob again, and said very seriously, "You are her husband after all. I can meet you and eat with you like a normal friend or an old classmate, but we can't have such things, it's not possible at all." Jacob's tears were streaming down. He looked at Mei Qing and choked and said, "Is it impossible for the two of us in this life? After so many years, we can finally meet again, don't you want to make up for us? Was it a regret back then?" Mei Qing's expression was also a bit painful, and she sighed, "Of course I want to, otherwise I won't make a special trip back from the United States, but I think that gentlemen must do everything they want when it comes to money and feelings. If we the two have a chance to be together again, and that must be after you and Elaine divorced." Jacob blurted out without hesitation, "Then I will divorce her immediately." Mei Qing said very seriously, "Jacob, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that after you divorce Elaine, the two of us can be together." Jacob asked nervously, "Mei Qing, what do you mean by this? I don't understand, don't you want to be with me?" Mei Qing said sincerely, "Jacob, after all we haven't seen each other for so many years, how could we suddenly decide to be together? This is too trifling." As she said with a serious face, "We were in school when we were dating. At that time, we were all students. We had to study and socialize with our classmates every day. We never lived together. Life is different from falling in love. Especially at our age, we must not only consider our own life, not only our own feelings, but also our children and their views on each other. So this kind of thing is not something we can decide with our lips when we are like teenagers. We must think carefully before we can make a more mature decision." Jacob said immediately, "I can't accept what you said. I know you still have feelings for me in your heart, and I have feelings for you in my heart. Since both people have feelings, what can't you break through?" With that said, Jacob forced himself to ask, "Mei Qing, I want you to tell the truth, do you really feel about me now?" Mei Qing said with some embarrassment, "How do you ask me to answer your question? After all, we were together back then, and the relationship was so good, and we were all our first loves, and we had regrets for more than 20 years. It's self-deception." As she said, Mei Qing said again, "But as I said just now, this matter is not just about how you feel." Jacob's tears flowed more and more, aggrieved like a child. For so many years, he has suffered too much emotionally. So he felt great comfort at the moment when Mei Qing came back. When he saw Mei Qing, he really realized that his previous life had always been in dire straits. Therefore, he didn't want to live that kind of life for a minute. Seeing Jacob crying like a child, Mei Qing's eyes were red. She walked up to Jacob, used her sleeves to gently wipe away his tears, and said distressedly, "Jacob, you have worked so hard for so many years. If you can go back in time, return to the one before our graduation. At that time, even if you and Elaine already have facts, I will not give up on you." As she said, she sighed sadly again. It's a pity, time is gone. No one can let the years turn back. In a blink of an eye, we are all middle-aged and elderly people over 100 years old. Jacob grasped her hand tightly and said excitedly, "Mei Qing. Because we can't let the years turn back, we should not let down our future. Let us not let down in a second." At this point, Jacob was very excited, knelt on one knee, and blurted out, "Mei Qing, I want to be with you." Seeing him kneeling, Mei Qing suddenly panicked, and hurriedly pulled him up and blurted out, "Oh, Jacob, what are you doing? Get up." Jacob said stubbornly, "If you don't agree to me, then I won't be able to get up here." Mei Qing glanced at the door of the kitchen and said anxiously, "Oh, get up quickly, if you let the children come in, how can you explain this?"